Power BI, and if I choose sign in, I'm going to use, and so again, if you choose to sign up for a free trial, this would be kind of the same environment that you'll be logging into. So I'm going to log into this one that we've set up, emulate that. And as this user, it took me to a default dashboard here. In this case, we've got a corporate dashboard. We've got some general ledger analysis here on the left. See my revenue compared to our goal, some key metrics. Maybe I want to see some expenses, or net income by state. On the right, we actually added some elements and some key metrics around the sales part. So on the right-hand side, it's coming, let's say, from sales order and JDE. On the left, from general ledger. But you can also, from here, just get a quick example of what the pulse is or what the status is of a specific KPI towards a goal, or just a visualization from one of your reports. But the idea is you start from the dashboard, and then you can drill into that. And if I drill into that, it'll take me down to the underlying report that supported that piece of visual. So in this case, I wanted to see my sales by channel, and as we clicked on sales by channel visual, and now I can see that visual that was within the sales report that we have. So let's take a peek in. We'll kind of speak to the functionality here as we go. So on the surface, we've got, this is analyzing customer sales. I can also maximize this full screen, take advantage of some of the real estate. And if I look at this, I mouse over the chart, it says, okay, retail is taking up 65% of my sales. Okay, that's good. I can also notice, if I look on the right, we can see our sales broken down by region. So Central, West, Northeast, and East, they're all, for the month to date, period 8, we're actually doing better year over year in all regions. We can see kind of our total sales by our different customers down here. So Costco is up over prior year, Best Buy is slightly down, Sears is up, Walmart's down. So as a user, if I want to, okay, what makes up retail, I could go ahead and click on retail. It'll create a dynamic filter there. You can click off of that as well to remove the filter. And the filter, basically what it does, it filters down. You'll see the other elements in the chart. We can also switch this to, instead of looking at month to date, let's take a look at quarter to date. So now all the numbers will change to quarter to date. We're looking at year to date numbers. Maybe instead of period 8, I want to look at period 9. Okay, and if I mouse over one of these visuals, if you see a little arrow pop up, that means that there's been a hierarchy that's been part of the visual and allowing you to drill. So to turn on the drill, I can go ahead and click on the drop down. So click to turn on drill down. And now we can see, in this case, again, we've got Central's worse off than prior year. So is Northeast. However, West and East are still better than prior year. So let's take a look into Central. So if we go ahead and drill into Central by just clicking on it, I can see Robert O'Neill is actually doing better than prior year, but Jason Lee is pretty far behind, almost 50% of his prior year. Let's drill into Jason Lee. Maybe I can see the different customers of Jason Lee. So obviously we've got some issues around Best Buy with his sales, as well as Target and so forth. So another thing we can do is we can drill down, we can drill back up. If you look at this visual here that we're in, there's also an option here to go into focus mode, which will kind of expand it full screen. So if you're going to be analyzing one specific visual, in this case, again, our sales by region, you'll notice there's also this little drill to the next level of all elements. So instead of just going into Central and seeing what makes up Central by the sales rep and then the customer, we can actually drill at all levels. So if I go ahead and do that, now we're drilling down, and you can see all sales reps across the different regions compared to them in one screen. So that kind of gives us, again, a quick synopsis of, how each person's doing without having to drill in one at a time to each region. And if we drill in next level deeper as well, now it breaks it all the way down to the region, the sales rep, and the customer all in one shot. Okay, so again, I think Jason Lee is still one of the main contributors there. If I go ahead, I can just drill back up, go back to the report. Okay, so that's a quick option on how you drill. We will open this report up in edit mode in a few minutes and show you how you can completely change the visuals and change the hierarchy for drill and so forth. Going to the right here, if I click on the next tab, like product sales, in this case, now we're looking at maybe analyzing our sales by product instead of by customer or region or channel. So we've got our product group as a donut chart. Now you notice I mouse over this, there's the drill options. Another way to drill if you actually have a hierarchy is just right click on the visual and we can choose drill down. So if I want to see what makes up this TV and video, right, I can go ahead and drill down there, right click, I can drill back up. Okay, so you can just, if you're a right click person, go ahead and right click and you see what options you have available. We can also notice if we go over here to our heat map, we can kind of see the size of these. So, television's obviously one of our biggest sales. We got 597,000 there, 343 for home theater systems. We right-click on this, and instead of choosing drill down, we can actually choose see data. So sometimes you might want to just see what is the real raw data that's sitting behind one of the visuals. So you can go open up and look at the raw data, and then we can go back to the report, and it'll return us back to where we were. The other thing you'll notice, this is we've got a scatter plot here. We've got our selected gross profit % on one axis and our sales amount on the other. And we've got our breakdown by different product groups. Okay, so in this one, you want to be obviously highest gross profit % and furthest to the right. It's telling you you've got the most sales dollars at the highest margin. However, we do have some that have higher margins but less sales dollars. But you can also, again, just like we saw the data, we can also click on the ellipses in the corner and export the data. And that's going to do is take us and open up a CSV or Excel file with that data in it. So if you ever wanted to say, hey, I just want to get the data within this visual into an Excel format, it's just one click away. Okay. Moving on, you can also click on the next tab below, or you can also just use the navigation window if you're in full screen mode, next report page, and it'll take you right to the next page as well. So when we're clicking around on the different year-to-date, year, and period, those are what are called slicers, which are kind of like dynamic filters, or they drive some action. So in this case, these are not necessarily filtering the data, but driving the calculations, like period 9. So when we have year-to-date, when we do that, it's actually going to be the, click back off that and click back on. It looks like our map didn't want to register. All right. So in this case, we also added some other slicers, which you might want to be able to dynamically filter data as well. So we're looking at this. If I mouse over each of these pie charts, we can see our product groups within each state. If we want to look at maybe just retail, we can click on the slicer for retail, and it'll filter down the data to just retail. If we want to look at just Northeast, we can click on Northeast. It'll narrow down to just the states that are applied to Northeast. Okay. So everything here you'll see when we edit is completely interchangeable, and you can set these up to whatever you like. This happens to be one of our sample reports that we will map over the sales data for customers that choose sales. Go to sales trends. In this case, again, maybe we want to look at our summary. So this is basically our period 9 year-to-date sales, or gross profit dollars or %. We also have these trends. This is a year-to-date trend, so this is basically each month building on itself. One thing to note when we get into a lot of these calculations as well as these time, one of the things that we do is we set up based on your fiscal calendar in JD Edwards. So again, if you're not a January through December company, but you're a July through June or October through September, that's all part of our setup. So you get truly your fiscal periods that make sense, or if you're 445. Or if you have multiple calendars, we also support that as well. If I switch this to be month-to-date instead of year-to-date, you'll see now we're looking at each month, just the month itself, year over year. Quarter-to-date, you'll start seeing some trends where it's 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Kind of see how those quarterly trends are going, and then the year-to-date. And just like before, knowing Jason Lee, let's take a look at Jason Lee. And you can kind of see this year's activity versus the prior year's and how it's trending over time. So that's kind of how you can do trend type reports. If I click on the key sales metrics, maybe this is where you want this to be your starting tab, or these are the elements you put onto your dashboard, which is every day or every month or whatever interval makes sense for you to have these be refreshed. You can see here, in this case we've got gross profit percent. We got month to date, quarter to date, and year to date, and then we have the dollars, and we're comparing here, let's say, year over year. So this would be our month this year, the same month last year, sales this year, same month last year. And then based on, if I click on Central, for instance, it'll filter down. So Central's not doing so hot, but how are they doing in computing, right? Retail. So I go click on that. So basically, depending upon, the filters that you select in your slicers will kind of drive what those summary KPIs are doing. So these are in essence just aggregating all data across all elements underlying. So it's basically like a total figure, total gross profit, total sales, total gross profit percent for whatever you filter on. That's another way to kind of get a quick synopsis of your high-level key metrics. We also can click here on our sales data. In this case, we're back to a kind of a pivot table. We've got different groupings on our rows by region, by customer, and our product groups as our columns. So this should be like a pivot table in Excel, and something that, some people, and this might be for some people, hey, I don't want to see all the charts. I really just want to kind of build out some more tabular type reports, tables like our pivot tables, and that's kind of what you can do here. Okay. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to minimize this. Now, when we go in as a user, and you can define users, are they purely just a view user that can view what's already been out there for people but not really edit or change anything? They can just kind of click on the interactivity that's already built into a report or dashboard. But if you're an author or a user that has edit rights, if I click on Edit Report, it's going to open this up in an edit mode. So now, as a user, I have some different options. I'm going to go to my product sales. And you'll notice when I'm in edit mode, there's some new options that the flyout windows over here on the right. So there's a visualizations option. And the visualization allows me, if I want, for instance, looking at this heat map, it actually has that highlighted. But as a user, I can go in and say, well, I want that as a bar chart, right? Or actually, maybe I want that as a pie chart, right? Or an area map. Or let's actually go back to a heat map. So you just clicking around the different visuals can change what makes sense for the type of analysis that you're doing on any given report. What determines the drill hierarchy is really whatever you drag into this. So here, that's why when we turn on drill and drill into televisions, it's going to break it down to the product, which was the next level in that hierarchy. Let's go ahead and change that. Before we do, I'm going to go ahead and just remove product. On the right, we have these fields. So this is an example of our sales model that has the different information that you need to analyze JDE with sales data. So if I open up sales, we've got costs, gross profit, month to date, quarter to date, year to date, all those calcs driven off of those time slicers above, gross profit percent, quantity ordered, quantity shipped, sales amount, and so forth. So this is where you get your really anything from your sales-related tables with those calculated measures that we provide. Maybe we want to analyze any type of item branch information. I can go here, the item branch. This will be showing us some of the different category codes like product group or subgroup or product line, segment, or purchase cat code, sales cat code. As part of our setup process is we relabel all these, which we've kind of done for these samples down here, like product group with sales cat code 1. Product subgroup with sales cat code 2 and product with sales cat code 3, and we relabeled those as part of the setup. If I go up here to customer, first let's say that we wanted to go and find region. Now, if I want region, for instance, if I drag into the details here, you'll notice that dragging region in the details, it takes each of those groups, like product subgroup, and now I can see the different regions within that. So television is broken down by region, monitors broken down by region. If I drag that up below subgroup, and then now that's actually allowing me, when I drill down from televisions to the region, and then let's say from the region we'll go down to the customer. So I'll just bring customer right in below that. So now when we drill on this, we're going from televisions to the product subgroup to the region, from the region down to the customer. So that's just by just dragging whatever elements you want into that will define what that drill hierarchy is. Okay. Another thing you can do is, let's say we want to take this tab and just duplicate a whole tab. You could do that as well. So if I wanted to say I want to take this and then duplicate this page. And in this case, let's say I don't even want this as a starting point, so I'm going to go ahead and just delete that table altogether. I want to keep the slicers because I'm going to use those, but as far as the visual itself, I want to start over. Let's go ahead and just click on, let's recreate that geo map as an example. So I'll click on the Geovisualization, and I can maximize that the size that I want. If we go down here to our state and just drag state as our location, it acknowledges that as a geographic type field, and then you'll see we've got now the different states where we have activity. If we go down to our sales amount, so now if I scroll down to our sales amount, let's say year to date, and I'll drag that, and you can drop it right on the canvas there as well, if you want as well, and it'll say, okay, that should go right here to the size of the pies. Now if I mouse over this, it's giving me my total dollars. Okay. We can also go in and add, let's say, like make these pie charts by product group. So if I have product group and just drag that into the legend, it'll turn those circles into pies. Okay. Now we mouse over this, it's giving us our total sales dollar for each of those product groups within the state. Okay, we can still go over here and filter. So if we want to look at just, Jason Lee as an example, we can still look at just Jason Lee, but we can also do some other things here. You notice that when we have this selected, there's also this tooltips. So what else we drag into the tooltips will show when we mouse over some of the visuals. So we go down here, let's say we want to add our gross profit year to date. So if I grab our gross profit year to date, I'll just drag that down the tooltips. And maybe also our gross profit percent year to date. So now when we mouse over, you'll see in the flyout window, it's not just showing the sales amount, but also my gross profit dollars and percentage. So without having, to do different charts or different pages for that. The other thing you can do, so you can duplicate a page. You can also hit the plus and give you a brand new blank canvas to start from as well. So when you're starting from a blank canvas, again, we had some slicers. So if I go ahead and click on a slicer icon, we can go up to our calendar. That's where we went in and we said, okay, let's add a slicer on year. Okay. And then we can say, let's just down to 2019. Let's bring in maybe, again, our product group. So if I go down here to our product group, and I'm going to drag that onto the canvas. And actually, let me shrink up the size of that. Here's our product group. And if we look at our product group and look at our sales, the sales amount year to date. Okay. And instead of seeing that, let's look at that as a bar chart. So one of the things we want to do when we have a bar chart, let's say we want to sort that. So if I click on the ellipses, I can go ahead and sort that based on the amounts. But I also want to show the labels, right? So dragging elements in, you mouse over this to the fields, kind of gives you the different ways you can interact with the visualizations. But if we click here on the format, here's how we can go and then turn on some of the formatting options, like turn data labels on. Okay. We can also say I want these to be maybe showing up in thousands, and I want this to be 1 decimal place. So you could go ahead and do something like that. I can also copy this visual, just Control-C and Control-V. In this case, let's turn this into maybe a donut. And instead of seeing it by product group, let's go see this by channel. So I go up to our customer, and we can go down to our channel and drag channel into the canvas as well. And it probably did, it just made that another element. So I'm just drag it up above. This would be a drillable chart. We'll start at channel, and then we'll be able to drill down to the product group within the channel. Okay. Another thing we can do, let's say we want to do a trend, maybe an annual trend down below. So if we go to our calendar and we grab our year period, I'll just drag that into the canvas, and we'll make this a bar chart. And this time we want to see maybe our gross profit dollars and gross profit percent. So I'm going to make this down the bottom. I can go down and find my gross profit dollars. So if we go down here to our sales and grab our gross profit amount, okay, those will be our columns, and we'll grab our gross profit percent, drag that down as our line values. Okay. And just like before, we want to actually show data labels. We'll turn data labels on, and maybe we'll also want to do these auto and do 1% or 1 decimal place. Okay. So this is how you kind of can build some new reports from scratch. And then once you're done, you can go ahead and save this. Right, hitting save will save over the existing report, or you can do here and do a file save as, and go this would be our sales ad hoc report. Okay, and when I save this, it's now going to go ahead and save this back to my reports. Now, I didn't show you how we navigate to that. We'll do that next here. Because if I click on the left on this little navigation pane, that's where we had our dashboard, and all the reports that are supporting in the Power BI will be available here in the Reports tab. There's also the data sets if you want to build a new report from scratch. Okay. So again, we open that up by just clicking on the navigation pane on the left. The other thing we can do is, let's say we wanted to add one of these as a visual pin to the dashboard. So we can go here, pin the visual, okay, and it's going to pin this to an existing dashboard, or I can create a new dashboard I want to pin this to. So this is now, again, pin the visualization to the dashboard, and if we navigate back to our corporate dashboard, we'll go ahead and if I look down at the bottom here, here's our new visual, and I can drag that wherever we want. I can resize it. Okay, and if I click on that, it'll take me back to the report. Okay, so that's how you kind of get these different elements on the different dashboard. And again, you could be pulling different visuals or KPIs from various different reports all in this one dashboard. So you might have an executive dashboard, you might have a sales dashboard, you might have a HR dashboard. You also can create, even though we're in this example environment, all of these subject areas are within one group workspace called My Workspace. But you would actually, in practice, set up different group workspaces, and that's how you would secure people to just the subject areas that they're applicable to them. So if I'm a purchasing manager, I don't need to see GL, I don't need to see HR, I just need to see purchasing. So I'm only going to be able to see in the purchasing folder all the purchasing related reports. You'll notice here in the dashboard as well, there's also this ask a question of your data. So based on the different elements you bring into your dashboard, you can do some quick, it's like asking, on your Siri on your iPhone, or if you have a Amazon Echo, Alexa kind of thing. So let's say we want to just say sales by product group, right? So what it'll do, it'll find those objects from your underlying data set and come back with returning you, the result. Okay, so that's another way to just ask some questions. You can also pre-can specific objects to be showing up here as well. Okay. So that was an example there of the kind of Q&A. If I navigate back to, let's say, our dashboard, right, and we can navigate by just clicking on one of these other visuals back down to a report, or we can, again, navigate directly to reports. Let's say I want to go directly looking at a general ledger example. So if I click on under reports, general ledger, and we'll maximize this full screen as well. So like the sales, this is kind of very similar. We kind of created some different tabs. Again, this is another sample report that we would, once the models are in place, we'd map this over your data. So you would actually get something, and it would be tailored. So instead of seeing, if you don't analyze your information by region, maybe we make this by business segment or division or whatever. So that's where we just change all the slicers and all the elements there. Here's a real quick synopsis of maybe all of our key metrics around the P&L, revenue, gross profit, net income, and expenses. Look at just the Western region. We can kind of see how West is looking, how are they looking for just computing. Again, it's kind of giving us a quick way to filter down. So a lot of times, and especially people in finance, they're used to seeing traditional operating statements like income statements and balance sheets. To get a whole company's view of the data might be, 500 pages of reports. And with this, with the dynamic nature of the slicers, it can give you not only a visual look at that same information, but also by 3 clicks getting from, knowing what was on page 187 of a 500-page report. So another way to kind of look at doing some financial month-end analysis, here we click on our key metrics tab, and now we can kind of see some KPIs. We're comparing current value year to date for the period compared to our budget or prior year. So we can see that for revenue or gross profit percent, gross profit, net income. You can also maybe want to look at just analyzing revenue by itself. You can do gauges, and then the same tabs in the net income and gross profit, geography, just like we saw in the sales example. But you also can do, if you want to do some high-level type P&Ls here as well. So you can still do that. So if I click on, let's say, the income statement consolidated, we've got here revenue, cost, sales, gross profit. So again, the way that these types of reports work is they're kind of have nested summary levels. So revenue and cost summarized to gross profit, or net out to gross profit. You get SG&A, income from operations, then depreciation, other expense, income before taxes, and then taxes, net income. So here's an example where we've got kind of a high-level P&L, and we've got the actual amount, budget, and variance for year-to-date. If I click on this, it'll be now calculating quarter-to-date on the fly. If I want to look at just home appliances, we can see how the P&L for home appliances and how they're responding. We click on the next tab, which is looking at consolidating view. We'll keep the same row structure, but maybe we want to see this as different divisions as our different columns. You can also go in, as we've done, if I wanted to, let's say, add this, and so within each revenue, I want to see my breakdown of divisions, same thing with costs and gross profit. So if we go ahead and go back into edit mode here, and we'll duplicate this tab, and this is where we can kind of see, like this would be maybe our, call this our IS by division. Okay, and if I click on this tab here, or this data table, we'll go up, find our business unit, find our cat code for division, just drag division right there underneath the row level 1. And now you'll see, I'm filtered on home appliances, get rid of that, and now we'll see, in essence, revenue broken down by the different divisions, cost, gross profit. So by just dragging elements in the canvas, again, you can kind of get, it might take 3 weeks to get a response from IT. You can now do by drag and dropping elements on your own. The other thing to point out here on the financials is on the right-hand side, we've got these different calculations. So we do blend with our financial analysis the general ledger balances and detail together. So from any of these reports or pivot tables or visuals, you could drill down from the highest level consolidated values down to the asset, the document number, the explanation, the remark, the document type, the invoice, supplier invoice, the GL date. So it's not like you can only analyze the high-level data. These go, all the way from the consolidated P&Ls down to the transaction level analysis. We also have things like the account, and we have the different the category codes. We have these different hierarchy levels already built in for the account hierarchies, balance sheet hierarchies, income statement hierarchies, and so forth. And again, back to the, should have spent more time there. We have the pre-canned calculations for the actual amount, inception to date, month to date, quarter to date, year to date, total year, for prior periods, prior year, units, budget amounts, gross profit, revenue, net income. So some of those key metric type values. This is where we kind of built out all these hundreds of calcs that don't come out of the box with JD Edwards or a BI tool. You kind of have to build out this metadata, and that's one thing that's part of our deliverables is just exactly that. That's just another flavor of financial. Let's take a look. Maybe if I go here to like HR payroll, I'm not going to save that guy. So under reports, here's where we've got maybe just a real quick view of analyzing employee information. So we've got our total employee counts, minimum salaries, maximum salaries, average years of service. Let's maybe filter on just active employees, full-time regular employees, maybe just account executives. All right, so now we kind of see we can start narrowing down our data set. If I want to right-click and drill down on this, I can see who are the different users. There's also, by just filtering on this, it'll actually filter down my data table down below as well. So I can just see which users are applicable to those as well. Okay. So here's, and typically what we'll do is for sales and general ledger, we have those kind of more robust dashboards / reports, that lots of different tabs to analyze the data. But for all the other modules, we'll have these kind of 1 or 2 page tabs. So for HR or purchasing, right? We have these kind of 1 page, and then again the intent is that you take these and modify these on the setup to what you want to be analyzing as your quick view at the data. The data sets is you can grab any data set. So for instance, I click on a data set and it'll open up the different elements that are available in that data model, and then you can drag those into the canvas. Just like we had that blank tab we started from, this is how you build a new report from scratch in the web. Select a data set, drag elements into it, and then save the report. Okay. The other thing you can do, if we go down to say the purchasing, if I click on this, you'll see a schedule refresh. So this is where, again, this is all in the cloud. I'm going to speak to this a little bit in some of the PowerPoint slides when we come back to that at the end of the session. But there is ability to kind of create a gateway connecting this back to your local data set and refresh all these models on whatever interval that makes sense. So that they could be going against your transaction JDE Edwards data. They could be going against a copy of that, going against a data warehouse. And you just basically can schedule refresh it to say, okay, refresh it every hour, refresh it every night, or you can just refresh it now on demand, which is kind of like any real-time JDE Edwards report. You go in there and say, okay, I want to schedule a report job, and then it's going to go out there, grab the data that's available at that moment, and bring it back to the canvas. So you can do all this even if all your data is on-premise, but you will still want to share this data in the cloud. So that's how the scheduling works. There's also an Analyze in Excel. And so if I click on this Analyze in Excel, it's going to go ahead and create a link back in Excel to that same, to basically allow me to do a pivot table in Excel back on top of that data model that was just we were analyzing in the cloud. Okay, so let's say we want to look at our open purchase orders by supplier. So if we go in here and I say, let me grab our open amount, I'll just drag that to my values. So this is now like if you do familiar with pivot tables inside of Excel, but now the difference is all that data is stored, all my data on premise. The models have been pulling in that sample data, modeling that in the cloud, and now I can just connect to that. So I'm not having to go and pull millions of rows back to my spreadsheet. So if we go in here, and I'll grab, let's say, a supplier, and we'll go in and say maybe a supplier name. So here we've got, in essence, our each supplier and the total open amount. I can go ahead and sort that from large to smallest. Let's see that maybe broken down by business unit. So we can go up here to our business unit, grab business unit and description as another row. Okay. And then we can go ahead and collapse these fields as well. So now, not collapsing on me there. This one, sorry. There we go. So now if we go ahead and just went to one business unit, we could expand just each business unit one at a time to see the value. So this right now is, in essence, I'm analyzing millions of rows of data, but I'm not having to basically wait for that all to be refreshed into my report. Based on what I drag into my canvas or my pivot table, it's going to go out there and grab those in aggregate. So if I save this file off, it's going to be kilobytes in size because all that data, again, is not now sitting as part of this report. Another thing we can do is, if I hit the plus here, there's also this option here. Oh, let me go in and click my add-in here. Went away, so go to COM add-ins. And I'm going to add this Microsoft Power BI Publisher for Excel. So the way you get that is that if we go back in, and that's actually just open up this Power BI menu option there. If I go back to the cloud, and you go to the drop-down arrow here, this is where you can set up a data gateway, even though that won't be applicable on a free trial that we're doing here. But in real operation, that would be the way to go about to get your data refreshed in the cloud. There's this Power BI Publisher for Excel. So when you actually download this and install it in Excel, you'll now have a Power BI menu option. What's nice about that is that, if you're just in a spreadsheet, say, you know what, I want to kind of analyze my, my AP, where we're at with AP or sales, right? So let's go back and analyze some quick sales data. I want to get my sales, year-to-date sales by sales rep. If I click in this tab here and go connect to data, right, I'm connecting back to that same demo environment in the Power BI Cloud. And if I go grab our sales, there's a sales ad hoc report that you saw there as well, connect. So now it's allowing me to create a pivot table on top of that. So all those same options that we had in the Power BI Cloud are now available here for me. So if I go into our sales, and in this case our measures are all at the top, and I want to look at my sales amount year to date, I'll drag that into my values, and we'll look at maybe our sales by sales rep. So if we go do our more fields and find our sales rep, I'm going to drag sales rep into my rows. Okay. So now we can go in and sort this from high to low as well. Okay. So the other thing that's kind of neat if you're in Excel is if you go to insert, you can insert charts on top of this, but there's also some of these like a people graph, right? So if I go into grab the people graph, okay, and it's saying, okay, let's really select some data, right? So we select the highlight what you want to present, and now I'm actually getting this chart to this. Maybe I want to change this. This is our, year-to-date sales by rep. Okay. Okay. So this is where you can kind of do some of those neat. If we go and look at the settings here, you could go in and maybe it's not people that you want, so you can change this to be some other type of shape, stars or money or something else. Okay. The other thing you can do is you can take just a normal spreadsheet and you can pin that back to the cloud. So, right. So maybe you want, for this example, maybe I want this sales rep visual back in my dashboard that we put out there in the cloud. So if I go ahead and select this object and choose pin, it's saying, okay, do you want to pin this to the corporate dashboard or a new dashboard? If I go ahead and choose okay, it's now going to actually go ahead and it's pinned to the dashboard. So if I go back over to our dashboard in the cloud, all right, go to my corporate dashboard, and I scroll down, there's that visual that we just basically created there in Excel. Okay. So while we're in Excel, the other thing we can do, so we've shown you how we can connect back to a data set that's in the cloud. We also have the ability, so if you're running analysis services with Microsoft and a tabular models, like kind of our packaged cubes, if I go to data from other sources and analysis services, here I'll choose SQL demo. So I'm connecting to, in essence, a packaged cube. So one of the nice things about this is that you'll see the different subject areas. So we have one model that supports a different subject area. So if we want to go in and grab, again, accounts payable, I can go ahead and select just that specific object, and now I can build my pivot table right from that. So within one tab of my report, I could have accounts payable information, purchasing information, AR, GL, so you can kind of pull all that data and display it within one sheet or so. Okay, so that's kind of the ability to connect with the Power BI. The same thing with the Power BI desktop is this is where there's a free client. So when you go to Power BI, you can go to desktop client that allows you to model data, build those calcs. That's kind of what we have here. So this is an example of our accounts payable data model, right, where you can actually relate data together, and then all your calculations you may have, you can now drag those into the canvas. And then once you've built out your reports, you can publish them to the cloud. So again, as we've shown you in the Power BI cloud, you can build reports. You can build reports locally in the Power BI desktop and publish them to the cloud. So different options around that. And you can also go ahead again if you're going to have cubes on premise or even cubes in the cloud. You can go ahead and build a new report where we're going to go in, open up on a separate screen here. So if I were opening up and creating a new report, get data from analysis services, okay, and so just like we did in Excel, we can go out there and grab a pre-existing cube as well, and now we're connecting to that live model. And so, the nice thing about this is that these models already, they're in memory. So as you're interacting with them, you're dragging and dropping, and everything's just like split-second response time. So it's really fast. Okay,